when the stream is started, everything you say goes over audio.
Sure.
Okay, so Twitch has accepted our stream.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook has accepted our stream.
Oh, I forgot to remind people to turn your phone off,
Yeah, my phone.
just in case. Just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joel, I don't know if you need to turn your phone off, just in
It's
case.
off.
Oh, it's already out. Off.
Yeah.
Good.
He's on top
Good.
of things.
Of course he is.
Okay, so what I will do then is in this fourth square, I'll just put some text of who's on the show today.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, I guess we're ready to go.
Oops.
Are you ready?
Did I just?
No, I think it was my phone.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Just checking. I thought it might be them in the last minute.
Oh, I have to adjust that camera.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I got to send you the link now, right, Vicki?
Yes, please. Yep. And while you're doing that,
Vicki, I just want to confirm this, that Daniel's Law passed, correct? It passed New York State legislation.
I'm not sure that it did.
Let me
Did
check.
you see? Why don't you check while I'm doing this? If you can check that. Because I would, that's why I said I would focus more on Erie County then. But unless I know Cariel's law passed, but that's slightly different enough that it doesn't really relate to this.
Okay, I just texted you the link for the second show.
Okay. It didn't come in. There it is. Perfect. Okay. Actually, when I looked at Daniel's Law, there's another Daniel's Law that seemed to have nothing to do with them. And I was surprised about that. It's not New York State, it's some other thing. So that's why I'd say I would just not even get, and we're not about Daniel's Law per se. I mean, we can talk about the situation, but we're talking really more about the responders, community responders.
Right, but I mean, the justification for why the community responders are so vitally necessary is completely tied to Daniel's Law.
Sure, but if you check what.
I'm checking and
Sure.
I can talk about it in a way where it's irrelevant whether it passed or not.
And you can also check if you can while I'm introducing things as well. But anyway, we can we'll just say what we do know, and we certainly know it's needed, and we certainly know that that we need community responders. So anyway, okay, so.
Right, I see here there are two Daniel's Law. I see what you're saying.
See what I'm talking about? Now, so weird. Okay.
Okay, you got your sharing set up?
I think so. I thought I set it up once, but I wasn't seeing it, so I set it up again. So
Okay.
it might be running twice, but that's
All right.
no big deal.
Tell
Okay.
me when I should start the countdown.
Okay. You can start it now.
Okay. Countdown has started. You can.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being produced here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And thank you to our friends at Buff State, WNYPC WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station at 91.3 FM. We're grateful to our friends at Buff State. And when I think of gratitude, I think about the Haudenosaunee and the Seneca, on whose land we are right now, who, despite years of near genocide, of extreme violence and oppression and stealing of their land, still start all their events and all their days out with a Ganonyo, with the Thanksgiving of thinking and thanking Mother Earth for all of the care and all of the provisions that she has given us for a good life in this creation, for the water that is life. Water is life, Mini Wachoni, that, makes up 70% of our body, that is so vital and crucial for life on this planet, for all the plants, medicinal and nutritional plants of all kinds, and the knowers of the plants who are able to use them to help for healing, for all the different plants, for all the different animals and creatures, the swimming, crawling, four-leggeds, and of course the flying creatures that bring so much and teach us so much, for all the different the lakes and rivers, the mountains and different forms that give us such beauty and makes it such a wonderful world to live on. And of course, the thunder beings that we live near us right in the Niagara Falls. And they can go on really for hours or days with all the different, the different kinds of plants and the different elements to be thankful for. So we can be thankful, and especially to the Creator and the great mystery, for all the things that we know, that we don't know, that we think we know, and we're wrong about. Many things to be thankful for, and especially the love that brings us all together and that keeps life going in this creation. And then they say Nyahweh, and the people say Nyo.
No.
So I'll say Nyahweh.
No.
Thank you. So I'm grateful for both of you who are joining us on this show. So I'll just go round back into the Haudenosaunee way, the Seneca, go counterclockwise. So I'll start. Last show I didn't introduce myself. Victory Ross. I'm the
Victory.
board chair, or Victoria or Vicky. I still accept those names, but I've reclaimed my teenage nickname because we really need victories, and that's part of what this show is about. So this show is going to be about reimagining public safety in Erie County, which is critical, crucial, and I'm very excited to have as our guest Sameria Mbili, who is past president of Peace Action Canisius College, who is a recent Canisius grad, who is a potential,
Western New York Peace Center.
What?
Western New York Peace
Well, you're
Center.
definitely part of the Western New York Peace Center. We're very grateful for that, and very grateful for you and
Grateful
your
for you
background
as well.
in international relations and really justice studies. So, and then I want to welcome Joel Lessies. Joel has had me on his show and does all kinds of things. Joel, thank you so much for coming on.
Vicky, I was so happy, so grateful for the invitation. Thank you.
Oh, well, I know this is going to be right up your alley, all of these things. And we've seen each other at a couple of meetings on reimagining public safety in Erie County. Even though they didn't use that phrase, that's what it was all about. And I just want to recognize, your wonderful work that you're doing through the organization that you founded, and you're also president and chief executive of, is that right? Of education.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's president and something, founder,
Yeah.
president, and something else. What's the other one?
Executive director.
Executive director, of course. What is wrong with me? Executive director. I should have known that. Of the Education Training Center Incorporated. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
ED. That's what ED stands for.
right, executive director, right? Yes. So anyway, so Joel, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here with both of you. Yep.
So reimagining public safety in Erie County, or just reimagining public safety, and we'll get into Erie County in particular. But when we think of the topic of reimagining public safety, what are the values that you like to uphold, that you want, that you think of, and you want people to think of in this connection? So we'll start with Sameria. We'll just keep going that talking piece.
My main value regarding this subject,
Yeah.
I think that is really community. Like, it has the community responders. It's community and how love binds community, and how nothing can be achieved if we don't love one another. And in pertaining to mental health is now is being a topic, but before it wasn't as discussed as much, and people really have a battle within their mind, and they feel lonely, and they feel alone, and we have to be the light to help them. So just mental health and community is my value for this show.
Well, thank you so much. Mental health and community. Amen, 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 ashe. So, Joel, what would you put for a couple of values to remember in this connection?
Values for community. It's interesting because Education Training Center offers a meditation program. And on 2 o'clock, at 2 o'clock on Saturdays, 35 minutes, 5-minute break, and 35 minutes with a chant at the end. The name of the program is actually called Kaiosei. And Kaiosei is a Japanese word. It means like harmonious living harmoniously in community. And so some of the principles of Kaiosei are that there is harmony. How do we establish harmony in community? If you have a disharmonious individual or individuals, they're crying out for teaching and lessons and support and nurturance. So to restore Kaiosei principles, when there is disharmony, it really starts with support and nurturance and honoring a couple things: where we come from, what we are, what nature teaches, and our deepest self, a deep investigation of all these things. So that's I understand what Kaiosei is in relation to a value of community living.
Well, that's very beautiful, very beautiful. So I would add, well, first of all, I'm so glad you said love, Sameria. And truth and love. Just on our immediately previous show, talk about truth and love, because Dr. King talked about, unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. So some of it, we want to get at the truth of things, and not to say that that's always a simple matter, but there are some things that are just facts. So facts exist in this world. So we need to look at the truth and for ourselves and share that truth. And the other thing I'd say is both those things, if we squarely deal with them through community, is that really the other thing is healing. So that healing is a big value in this, and that connectivity, as both of you said about community, that some of that is what helps us to heal. The truth and love helps us to heal. And those are some of the things that we need when people are hurting or need help. Those are the things that help us, So being the change means that's another one, sort of being the change that will help those things happen, that healing.
Vicky, if I could introduce this quickly. In Tibetan culture, illness is not seen as an isolated manifestation of some biochemical gone awry. what is illness in Tibetan culture, as I understand it, it's disconnect from nature. When the people get away from their deep connection, their deep reverence and connection for connectedness, not reverence for, but their deep identification, their experience as nature shared, then illness begins to crop into community. And that's how they understand it. And how do they treat that? They treat that with nature, with plants and herbs and medicine and meditation. And so I just wanted to present that as an idea.
Well, it's very, very crucial, and especially it's a part of an explanation of why things have gone so very terribly wrong in this society, because so many people and so many of us are so unconnected from nature, or even people who appreciate nature. There's still a certain amount of disconnect with nature when, just the use of lights and, I mean, there, not to say we shouldn't use lights at all, but there are a lot of ways that people have been more and more disconnected from nature, and it shows both in our society and also in what's happening to nature, because we've added so many elements that are so foreign to the nature of nature that it's gotten very problematic. So anyway, so when we're reimagining public safety, so all of these relate to that. All of these ideas about what is illness and what is healing, what are the values that we need for public safety and wellness, right? Because safety and wellness sort of go hand in hand. If you're not safe, you may not be very well, or at least you're in danger of not being very well if you're not safe. So, so public safety, maybe if we start off really with the first part of it being the community responders program. So we had hoped that Daniel Prude's brother, Joe Prude, and Joe's wife Valerie were going to join us on this show, because they are people who could really speak very, very strongly to this issue. But so many people have had so many instances of locally and nationally. We've had instances where wellness checks or mental health calls have gone very terribly wrong. We had Willie Henley, who was a homeless or a relatively homeless person, spent a lot of time in the shelter, who had some, let's say, mental health issues, was frequent around town. A lot of people knew him. Somebody had called one day when he was very agitated, and he was walking around with a baseball bat. Now, he wasn't hurting anybody, but he was agitated. Maybe he was calling out or crying out. And so somebody called the police for a wellness check, or, that there was a mental health issue going on with this person. Well, the police came, and first there was a couple of them, and then more of them kept coming, and they're pursuing him. And as they're pursuing him down the street, he's getting more and more agitated, all these police pursuing him. Now, first of all, I don't think there is a person who, if you have a bevy of police pursuing you, is not going to be getting more stressed out, not less stressed out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what happened, one of the police officers touched his arm, and he whapped her with the baseball bat. And so the other, her companion officer, they were a pair, shot him. Shot him. Now, didn't kill him. He didn't die then. He has died since. But that shooting him, which could have been a very simple call. A lot of people who work with the homeless population knew him. So this is an example of why we want this community responders program, pilot program, start off with a pilot program in Erie County. So the pilot program would be that mental health professionals, so social workers or other people who are trained in mental health, and also health workers who are either EMTs or people who are very, very, cognizant of physical manifestations of health and and also health issues, right? And a peer, and that's a basic team. And who exactly would be on which team would depend a little bit on what the call is or who's available that day. But to have these teams that would respond to low-level calls, low-level 911 calls that are non-criminal calls. And I would just go around and have each of you talk a little bit about what you think about that and why you'd like to see it, or whether you'd like to see it. And I'll just add one other thing. This pilot program that we are suggesting is only $500,000 we're talking about. So that is really a very minor amount for a pilot program. This would be a small pilot, and other cities who've done these community responder programs have had tremendous results. But so anyway, so you can speak to that too if you'd like. But Sameria, if you want to share what your thinking is on that.
Yeah, I mean, initially when you brought it up to me, because I hadn't heard about it before, and I was like, yeah, this sounds like a really good idea. I think that we should at least try it out. It wouldn't hurt to try it out and see if it could work in Erie County. And then I brought it up to some other people that I know. I'm like, oh, well, what do you think if there was someone in the streets who was not like cognizant or wasn't fully there, and they're just causing like a disruption? How would you feel if some like a police, not a police force, but somebody else who is more could adapt to their needs better? And they were just like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, because what if they hurt somebody else? Like they're automatically their mind goes to like they could hurt somebody around them, or they could hurt myself. So I think some people are hesitant about the program because they're just fearful, and there's this fear inside of them. Like they don't know how to deal with someone in that state, so they don't trust anyone else but the police. And I feel like that's something that has to be addressed moving forward. But I myself, I personally, I think that this is something that needs to be implemented, because if you just look at what happened with Daniel Prude, and I don't know if you guys ever watched Split. It's a movie where is this schizophrenic, this guy who has schizophrenia, or not schizophrenia, he has multiple personality disorders, and they change, like it's like multiple beings in him. And if a police had to deal with someone like that, they would probably be scared themselves dealing with someone who had multiple personalities. And it only takes someone who is a clinical profession to actually talk to them and help them calm down and be in their right mind to carry on throughout the day. So I think it's you have to use discernment, and when these 911 calls do come in for people who have mental illness, then it needs to be community members and people who are clinical professionals helping people with mental health. I think that's where I stand right now.
Thank you, Sameria. Joel?
Well, as an individual with lived experience, right? And when we think that, what does that mean? That means that I have direct experience with mental health states that are non-ordinary. And so when we begin to examine the language of mental illness, we begin to see a whole host of stigma, prejudice, assumptions, fear. And what is mental illness? It's a term that is used to describe different states that we as human beings all experience on a gradation, on a scale.
Sure.
But there's this tendency in human beings to divide. You have this, you are crazy, or you are ill. And while in certain conditions that may be useful to get people help, the overarching ways in which these terms are used, divide, label, stigmatize, and harm individuals who have non-ordinary states of being. And so I think when we begin to examine what mental health is, mental health distress it is not always this, but there is a potential and a much larger potential than we could even begin to perceive. A lot of these distresses, mental health distresses, are sensitive souls' responses to systems of power and structure that are not addressing and offering what these sensitive souls need. They're not speaking to the soul. They're not speaking to the human experience and supporting the human experience and what they require to thrive. So with that, people become ill, they become in distress, and then they get labeled, stigmatized, judged, and institutionalized, incarcerated, or hospitalized. And then you've just lost a whole bunch of potential healers and very sensitive, gifted people to the pharmaceutical industry, which is, grown so exponentially, 80, 100 times what it was in 2008 to 2023.
Really?
It's grown so exponentially.
Right.
And so there's a film, Crazy Wise, which talks about this. But if you have an effective medical treatment for a condition, let's call it mental illness, and let's say you have an effective medical treatment for a condition and illness, and you apply that medical treatment, let's say pharmaceuticals, psychopharmaceuticals, antipsychotics, whatever, to the population that it's supposed to target and alleviate the condition, you would see the burden of disease obviously go down. But we're seeing an explosion in mental health conditions. We're seeing an explosion in various kinds of distress. And so when is the point in which we stop ourselves and ask, what is going on with this relationship between and medication is at times necessary. I'm not saying that, but the over medication, the default, I'm not comfortable, so I'm going to medicate you. Or as has happened to me when I was hospitalized, where you're too active, agitated. I'm not going to treat your mental health condition alone. I'm going to sedate you. And I'm going to sedate you with medication that's going to cause you weight gain into 270, 280 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the point in which we begin to step back and ask, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are economics driving things that have nothing to do with the quality of life? In Bhutan, they don't have gross domestic product. They have gross domestic happiness.
Right.
And so when do we begin to shift to this carbon neutral country and learn from them that, as we all know, those who have it and those who don't, money doesn't make you happy. It's not money that makes you happy. Money allows you to subsist in a way where you can build constructively to serve community. And if you're hoarding it in massive millions and billions, you're the problem and you're ill because there's no need for that. You know what I mean? And I just had to get that off my chest because.
Sure.
So in talking about, the prison industrial complex and how, 60% of the prison population has mental health conditions, and there's nothing restorative or rehabilitative about the program, but that people are getting rich off of it. And so I really, I want to propose this idea that this team of peer responders or trained professionals that are not holding guns, there are whole segments of interventions that have nothing to do with labeling and judging. And in the areas where these are implemented, that were once the highest rates of schizophrenia, they implemented this technique. It became the lowest rates of schizophrenia. What is the technique? It's open dialogue.
Right.
So you go in with a team, you go to the person's house, you have your loved ones, your family, your coworkers, they say, what's going on? Let's talk. They don't go out into the hallway and call 911 to take you away in a cart or shoot you in the ass with Haldol. They have an open dialogue with you and see that it's a process that you're going through. And so, yes, I'm fully in support of, this non-police intervention.
So I'm going to say, well, some of the things that you're talking about, there's also, not to say that mental health, the mental health system is perfection in itself. We have some issues there as well with over-medicating people and things like that. But what is even more lethal and even more damaging is the failure to recognize or failure to treat mental health issues as mental health issues, and where they're treated as criminal issues. So, first of all, more than 95% of the calls to 911 for Erie County, this was a study done by Erie County, and they found that 95% of their 911 calls were nothing to do with criminal activity. They were mental health calls, they were wellness checks, they were my neighbor is too loud, they were, 911, and they might have been health emergencies. I'm sure that would also be in there, and that probably a very large portion of heart attacks or things like that, some kind of physical illness. So those people don't need a policeman with a gun. And even though you said there are some people who said, oh, you might get hurt, there are people who've said that. But what I want to say is I have had police officials, and even in high station, that have admitted to me that if they get stopped by a policeman in their out of uniform themselves, their adrenaline starts running. Their fight, flight, freeze goes into gear. So one of the things we know is that for the vast majority of us now, maybe not the person or persons that you were talking about, or maybe that's because it was only theoretical and you're just talking to them about it. Mm-hmm. Most people, if they're approached by a police officer with a gun, who has a gun, it doesn't have to be drawn or anything, the fight, flight, freeze increases. So if somebody's in mental health, having a mental health issue, definitely it's going to push them further into it. And that is what we see every time. And then the police themselves also, when they see somebody who's really agitated, the more agitated the person gets, of course, their fight, flight, freeze also comes into effect. I want to tell another story about the police, was the bowler wrap story. So somebody jumped out of a second-story window into the snow, obviously in the winter, in a T-shirt with no shoes on, and they had scissors. The police were called. They came. This person, they're talking to the person. The police, as they do, there's 2 of them. There's 4 of them. There's 8 of them. They're coming. They're all coming. And they got this and they had a mental health worker. She's on the phone with somebody. She may have talked to the person. I assume she did to start off with. But then the police started to be in charge. And she's just the mental health worker over there on the phone with somebody. And this was the behavioral health team, by the way. And so then they as they're gathering like that, and then finally they took this bowler wrap, which is one of their non-lethal weapons that they have, that if you shoot it at the people, it goes like, it sort of creates a thread, with little hooks, and it gets hooked on the people's clothes, except she wasn't wearing clothes on her legs, so it hooked into her legs, into her skin. Now, and then they all tackled her.
Oh my God.
And they found they counted that to be a success. And I am still incredulous, because that took them hours. That whole thing was at least 2 or more hours. So meanwhile, did they offer the person shoes, socks, a blanket? No. So the things that could calm the person down, make them more comfortable, help them to feel safe, help them to de-escalate, those were not the things that happened. No. This is why the police are not the people to do this job. And I'm not saying it's their fault. There are some police who may be very good at de-escalating. I know that some of them are. But even if you're a police, and in fact, some police, they tell me there are police who have social work degrees, I'm sure.
It's
They
just
may be
the appearance
exactly
of them.
just
Yeah.
wearing the uniform, just having the gun is already agitates people. And then their responses also are back to dealing with a criminal element, are that it's the knee jerk. That's what their training is. So they're but anyway, they still have all those triggers that encourage people to be escalating, not de-escalating. So this community responders program would have people who are dressed like your average people in the neighborhood. And in fact, this pilot program that we want to do would have people who are familiar in a neighborhood and pick a small area so that they'll know the people who are wandering around or the people who have some mental health issues in the neighborhood. So this is one of the ways that it has, some of the things that have helped to make this program work so well in so many other cities. And if you go to Linktree, so it's linktr.ee/community with a capital C, responders, capital R, 4, digit 4, then EC, capital E, capital C for Erie County. If you go to Linktree, community responders for Erie, for EC, you'll see all kinds of information, including some of the studies and results that other cities have had. Some of them have found that crime actually went down, even though that wasn't one of the effects they were looking for. But that it's so much healthier. It saves the police from having to do this kind of work when it's not the work that they're hired to do.
Yeah.
They're hired to do law enforcement, deal with criminal issues. But instead, all the money has been taken away from other social programs for youth programs and community centers, and all getting less and less funding and more funding for the police. So then the police have started to get all these other responsibilities that are not their training, not their bent. So we'd really like to see people, we need to get this pilot program, and we hope that people will go to that Linktree. You can go also to the Western New York Peace Center website. You can see some things on there, and just let our Erie County legislators know that you'd like to see this happen. The other thing that we wanted to talk about is, and we can still come back to the circle around, but I want to make sure we give enough time to no new jail. So there's a big issue with the jail, especially it's an issue which is a potential $250 million issue. So it has been proposed by the sheriff's office for some reason that they should spend something like $200 million on a new jail. Now we have a facility in Alden that is big enough to house all of the inmates in Erie County. They have substantially fewer inmates than they used to have. And Alden has all of what's needed. It has extra property nearby. There's another facility right there that used to be a nursing home. And the one thing that's needed is adequate transportation to and from downtown or from other areas. And so that's something, if we could talk a little bit about whether people would like to see a new jail or not, and why. So, Sameria, if you want to, just in that talking circle format, we'll go around.
So, I really don't think it's a good use of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we could be using our money to get to the root of the problem instead of putting reactionary measures to it. Because what is the root of the problem? It's the mental health. People need adequate care,
right?
And that's the facilities and the resources that the money should be going towards. not a new project or a new building. I don't think that's gonna target the root of the problem or the
Right.
heart of the problem. So
Mhm.
I think, yeah, we need proactive measures, and that's just the jail is not gonna help with that. So, and I remember reading an article on the Buffalo News about how um, the mental institution, it was becoming really packed, and I know people were like sleeping on the floors.
Right.
So I don't know if that's why they had that idea to, oh, maybe we can just build a new jail and then we'll just send them there so we have more space. I really don't know what was the reasoning behind the new jail. I guess I'll do some more research on that, but for me, it doesn't seem like it's gonna solve the issue of mental health. So I
Right.
don't know why they would do it.
Well, don't ask me. I would just say
Yeah.
there's something about cha-ching going on in there, or empire building, or some kind of real. It's actually one of the places that they talked about is the former Adams Mark Hotel, and now I don't know what they're calling it, but taking that from eminent domain, so it would be right downtown, very convenient for people taking. It would be very convenient for the sheriff's department for some reason, but it would also mean that people, the first thing they see when they get off the highway into Buffalo, the first thing they see is a great big jail, right? And all the
but
money.
it seems counterproductive.
You're not kidding.
Because don't we like the part of our taxes going to like house these individuals
And
too?
we already have the space. We already have the Alden facility. Joel, I want to go to you. What? And I know actually we were at a meeting or two together on that very topic, which was very well attended. Please.
It was really well attended, and I was so happy to be there.
Yes.
No new jail, and that's sort of when it initially came out, this legislation or proposal for, I think it was the Erie County Council. What was it, Vicki?
Yeah. The sheriff's office proposed it, and the Erie County executive was supporting it. And so then and actually that one piece I was forgetting for a minute is that they had actually passed, it was proposed to them, to the Erie County legislature, that they should spend $2.5 million on a feasibility study and site acquisition and initial planning, which means
Sure.
we're doing it. That's not if you've got site acquisition in there, it means you're already doing it. And then we got them to reduce it to giving 750,000 or 700 some odd thousand that they could use, anyway, that all they were doing is getting a feasibility and needs assessment for the needs of the community that are needing to be filled. So please.
So it's funny that we talk about the needs of the community and how the needs need to be filled. And in the same breath, we come out with something like a new jail, which to me is a joke. I mean, this
Right.
whole notion that you want to build another jail, you could approach this any way you approach this. The only thing that I can glean from this is to line the pockets and job security of people, certain people in a certain strata of this community that are looking to line their pockets, consolidate their power, and really it has nothing to do with my tax dollars going to improve the quality of life of my community, and it infuriates me to no end.
Right.
It's a part of the prison industrial complex, which is a money-making machine in America. No other country in this world has this system of, we have the highest number of incarcerated people in our community, higher per capita than any other country in the nation, in the world.
Right.
And so, with this prison industrial complex, where's the money-making element coming from? It's the criminalization of the poor. It's the criminalization of the mentally ill and the poor.
Right.
So they're making money off of people at the lowest socioeconomic strata and people who are in distress, in mental health distress, who cannot obtain either the mission and purpose through our education system or our job structures to get mission, meaning, and purpose. Without mission, meaning, and purpose, what are the alternatives in our culture? Drugs and other
Right.
distractions that are not constructive or healthy. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a great division between constructive activity, which is supported through education and training programs, vocational training programs, and people who are cut off from that opportunity, their options are a lot less. And so if you want an example of why there is no new jail movement, or that the whole notion of a new building, $250 million facility, how would that benefit things? It benefits things in the way that I stated. It's to enhance the prison industrial complex, people to line their pockets, and to enhance the criminalization of the poor and the marginalized. And so when we look at that, what template can we use in Western New York for that understanding? Well, let's take ECMC, which had a new building built, and there are more problems now than there were back then because the mindset has not changed. People did not, they had a great architect, it looks very beautiful, but the very mindset of investigating with open curiosity how to address mental health correctly and appropriately, that didn't change. This was a money-making incentive to recouch and solidify economically people who are in charge making decisions about people's health. That's not really their outcome, that what they're looking for.
So what are you talking about now for Erie? ECMC built a new thing. I was just seeing that, and I was just wondering a little more about that because I don't really know about that. So please tell a little more what that is.
So I'm on the board of NAMI, National Alliance for Mental
Right.
Illness in
Yes,
Buffalo, New York.
we love NAMI.
Yeah. So NAMI, I'm chairperson of the advocacy committee for NAMI. So I advocate for individuals in our community who have mental health distress. Created 5 subcommittees in my chair as advocacy chairperson for the advocacy committee. The 5 subcommittees, one of them is incarceration, communities, and mental health. Another is legislation, so we work directly with legislators. Another is homelessness and mental health. Another is hospitalization and mental health, which is where I understand the deep and problematic issues with ECMC that are now beginning to get addressed with openness and inclusion with community members, people with lived experience. And, so those are 4 of the subcommittees. I can't remember the 5th, but I just know that there's no difference in the culture with the new building for Erie County Medical Center, CPEP, the CPEP facility, the Emergency Psychiatric Center. There was no change in culture from the old building to the new building. It was the same mindset. So I can't see how people wanting to change the Erie County Holding Center to a new building, you got to ask yourself, what's going to change if you're not changing your understanding of what's going on with your understanding of what's happening with incarcerating people who are being criminalized unnecessarily.
Well, I want to really thank you for bringing that up because I think even the sheriff said that the majority of people incarcerated in Erie County are there because of mental health and or addiction problems. And
60% of the people have mental health issues. Yeah.
And he said it's a majority. And mental illness is not a criminal act. So there are group homes, mental health facilities that can be created that are therapeutic communities that are really centered on, actually there's a wonderful book by Sandra Bloom, Dr. Sandra Bloom. I don't know. Are you familiar with Creating Sanctuary?
But it's
you'd love it. Oh, you would love it. I have to read her newer book. But anyway, that book had a tremendous impact on me because, anyway, she ran a therapeutic community. And she was a psychiatrist. And she said what people need, first of all, the question is not what's wrong with you. The question is what happened to you, right?
Yeah.
And as you also said, a lot of times it's about people are very sensitive too. And we all have some degree of issues with our broken alert systems due to trauma, shame, and or stress from,
Right.
so there's just this preponderance of mental health issues, and there are ways that we deal with it. And as you said, the things that are healing and helpful for people that are conversation, they are creative activities, art therapy, dance therapy, music therapy, talking therapy, walking meditation, just being, increasing your safe space, that
Yeah.
people have a safe space. So, this is what people have studied. I want to say I put, when we did a little description of the show, I am a licensed master social worker and a qualified clinical social worker, and I did family therapy and child and family therapy for years as a mobile therapist. So I mean, we know what helps people, and it's not more violence, more threat, and more intimidation. Those things they don't help people. They exacerbate the problem. Why why so many people have died in the jail? That we've had 32 deaths in the past. Averaging at one every 6 months. So how is that going to change? We have a building. If that's what they need, they have a building. It's just what they need. It had followed all the specifications. Anybody who wants to see the op-ed that it was another voice that Monica Lynch, whose brother died in the holding center after 13 hours in the holding center. So they have inadequate health care. Why would we put people with mental health or even physical health issues in any Erie County jail facility? So those people belong in other facilities, in hospitals, it may be in group homes for some people. There are other things that can be done and can be done more cheaply. So when we use the building that we have, use that for people who have criminal activity who need to be incarcerated, but use the rest of this money of the $250 million instead, use some of it for transportation to and from the Alden facility, use the rest of it for mental health programs, for more group homes, for, really supporting people so that they can work their way out of their addiction or mental health issues. As we, so often, so many people have mental health issues to deal with and do go on to deal with them. Go ahead, Joel. I can see you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick. I know I came across
Sure.
as very strong. I think it's important to lay the groundwork or the train, but there's also a lot of solutions that are present for us and available to us, including
Right.
just recognizing that this is true. I interviewed Dr. Izzaldine Abulayesh, who wrote "I Shall Not Hate."
Oh, good. You did?
I interviewed him on Unraveling Religion, and
Oh,
so
I have to check that out. That is so great. Go ahead.
yeah. So the title of his book was "I Shall Not Hate," and for
Right.
people who don't know the story, he lost his niece and three daughters
Right.
to an Israeli tank shell. And he was narrating, because he was a bridge between both communities, Israeli and Palestinian communities. He was actually a trained medical doctor who in 1 year in Israel delivered more babies than any other doctor, Jewish or non-Jewish, in Israel. So he delivered the most babies in Israel. He was revered by both communities as a leader and a liaison. He was narrating, I think somehow being interviewed on the news. A tank shell leveled his home, and his crying out stopped the violence in the war at that time. From that time, he lost his three daughters, and I believe it was his niece. He wrote a book called "I Shall Not Hate," saying that if lasting peace could come in the region, it would allow him to accept in some measure what happened that day. And so he took on this title, "I Shall Not Hate," with his deep faith as a man. And when I spoke to him, this was a man, this was, I don't know what you call him, you know, we call him a Sadiq in Judaism. He's a righteous man, a mensch, a righteous man. His particular lens of spirituality and religion was he's Muslim, but he was a very formidable force of good in this world. And so I titled the talk on unraveling religion with Isladdin Abulayesh, "We Shall Not Hate," as though I took on his and understanding that he transmitted something special to me from what he had learned. And so I say all that because, you know, we talk about treatment and we talk about hospitalization and incarceration, but what we're not talking about is imbuing people with the supports of microloans or abilities to follow what they are called and built to do in this world from a meaning perspective, from a mission perspective, from a purpose perspective. What is my calling? What am I here to do? People aren't even given that option to explore because they're so driven by either turn left to non-academic, non-vocational training programs into a street life, or if they're channeled into the education vocational stuff, it's all driven by economics. But where's the space for the heart? Where's the space to explore our visions of like what I'm called and meant to do by my creator? Where's the ability to really explore creatively and be supported by our community for arts and poetry and music and dance and acting? I mean, I don't think that this is, you know, and I want to say this very clearly. I came across a little harsh, but I think I'm just trying to, Dr. Isladdin Abulayesh said that if you don't have the correct assessment, you can't, and the correct diagnosis, you can't apply the correct treatment. You can't know what to do unless you assess the terrain correctly. And so unless we call out what's really going on here, it's not going to change.
And I think you were, you know, it's very important what you said too about poverty and really hopelessness that has so much to do with, you know, that with all of those issues and the shame-based society that we live in. That's another thing that, you know, race, you know, gender, sexual preference, all of those things and our biases. And, you know, some of the research that was done about trauma that started off with that is about trauma, that people found that a lot of it was about shame, that was socially induced, you know, shame, and that people in this society heap shame, you know, they've had shame heaped up on them, and then they heap shame on others as a sort of a remedy, trying to feel better about themselves. So what we need back to, you know, I think we've come full circle, is community. So taking care of people, helping people to you know, lead the life they need and be the people that we can all be, you know, and support and help each other as we can, and finding our ways in those ways. I do want to say it's so wonderful to me that you interviewed him, because I have read that book, and I want to just say a big shout out to our friend who's now he's gone over to the other side. He's transitioned into some other kind of an existence. Jim Whitlock, who was the one he bought. He when he had read Dr. Abulayesh's book, he went and bought, I don't know, was it 20, was it 30 copies, and he's giving them to everyone to read this.
I Shall Not Hate.
I Shall Not Hate. Isladdin Abulayesh. And he lives not far from here. I think he's in Toronto.
He's in Toronto. I actually traveled to Toronto. I recorded it on my phone. I gave him a call. Do you mind if you would you speak with me for a recorded talk? And you know, recorded it on my phone. We just had across from one another and talked. Yeah. So,
you know, we're coming to the end of our time here. So let us circle back to public safety and how people can help. How can people help? So, Sameria, what would you say?
I think the first thing is just getting educated about it. What Joel brought up about like there's two big industries, and it's the prison industrial complex and then the pharmaceutical industry, and it's all money making operations. And honestly, it's distracting people from their purpose. We talked about, you know, people not knowing their calling and they don't have any hope. So if we can just get back to that, if we can just help people find their calling, help people find purpose on this earth, because some people are living in, like, they feel like they're living in hell, and
Right.
and we have to be the hope to help them get out of that. So just recognizing and educating yourself on what is really going on in this system, because it's a systematic power operations that are happening behind the scenes, and we're being blinded by it. So a lot of people are being blinded by it.
Thank you so much, Sameria. Thank you. And Joel, what would you say? For
I'll try to
people?
keep it brief. I've talked a lot, and I appreciate both of you allowing me to yap a little bit. But
No,
I
please.
just want to say that when we talk about systems, we have to examine what systems are. They are people who bought into a mindset. It's nothing else. So if you change the mindset of the bought into system, you examine the psychology, realize what you're doing, and make a different choice. That's how systems evolve into something that benefit us instead of harming us. And I think the other thing is that I would like to say is that, you know, I said, if you have millions and billions and you're hoarding it, you're the problem. The solution is very simple. Just share what you have with others. I don't think it's so complicated. You know, that's all I'd say.
Well, I think we just came around full circle too to truth and love in a way, you know. So educating yourself as to the truth of the matter, some of the issues, and what is going on with them, and then the other thing in love, you know, using our voice, using our ability to, you know, make our wishes known, our needs known, and our what we feel is needed for our community, make that known. So we really focused on Erie County. It's not unique to Erie County, but we definitely, you know, have those things to grapple with, and we have some solutions that we just talked about. And so one of them would be have a community responders program. So we hope to have that pilot program. I hope people will check it out. That's linktr.ee, linktree/community responders digit 4 Erie County. So so that, and also let them know whether you want a new jail or not, because they really were all systems go. We had a victory that made them pause, but it didn't necessarily make them stop. So they may do their little feasibility study and needs assessment and decide, yep, we need a new jail. That's what we need. So that's not what we need. And if you don't think so, please let them know. Find your Erie County legislator and let them know. Well, I could not be more grateful for both of you. You both added some special bits of, you know, your lived experience and the flavor of, you know, what we really need for, you know, for public safety, for a good life for people, to help each other. And it's been so great to have both of you on. Really inspiring, very inspiring. So, and I'll send people to your show too.
And I just want to say, like, we are the city of good neighbors.
Yes.
So we should actually be leading this community responders program. I can't believe, like, this is something that we really need in Erie County.
Yes, we certainly do. So thank you both so very much for coming on. We're very grateful. This is Talking Peace. We've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you so much.